Hello, lovely people. How the heck is everybody? You can see that note there that says, greeting, people of Earth. The typo proves that it was me. There's no way there's no way an AI would have gotten that wrong. Don't worry about the wrong goggles for this situation. Hope everyone's having a lovely day. You probably hear some, you can hear it. It's, I'm really sorry. It has a couple of minutes left. 2 minutes left. I really apologize. I started the stream a little too soon. That is it at its standard setting. There is a ludicrous speed, which is quite a bit louder. There's also a silent setting. Hold on. That's a silent setting. That's half speed. But still the fan is in the background, and that's a very, very loud fan. It's a good white noise machine, so if I pass out, that's what's happening. There's supposed to be a way I can stream the printer doing its thing and have that kind of sound like someone is running the printer at the other side of the office. The silent one, I can't hear them. That's good. It is a thing where now, if the printer isn't working on something, I feel like I'm wasting time. So it's really appealing to my desire to multitask at all times. So I want to have stuff cooking. The thing that's printing right now is smaller pins for the Prayer's Handbook sculpt that I made. The sculpt, I think, is done. And suitable to share with people and make available as part of the Kickstarter. Honestly, I think it turned out great. There's a couple little tweaks I can make. Specifically, the text on the side of the book says the Prayer's Handbook, and then underneath it says the metadomain cleric. I think the metadomain cleric text might be too small to print on the side of the book, or too delicate, because it's debossed, not embossed. So since it sticks out a little bit, we need supports. I think we might need supports to print it more nicely, less worsely. And the cool thing is, what makes me really happy is I ran a bunch of test prints of half size, sorting out technical issues. Like, main things were like supports. Previously, the inside of the front cover, which I can show you an image of here. Let me jump over to the bottom text is going to be incorrect. I apologize for that. Spin minis. It's already launched. It launched. It's already launched. Open U. This is a half-size one. I might actually work a little bit on the stream on this one because it's so close to being awesome. Shift it a little bit. Let's bring it back here. So this is the sculpt. It's no longer those flat pages that we had before, which were basically a bunch of cubes that were squished. And so they were kind of like really clean sheets of printer paper. And so I've got these. I sculpted each one of those individually and then duplicated it and then rotated it 180. So we have two different sets of... So the paper's unique all the way up and down. Then I added a couple of extra little pieces that stick out. Anyone who wanted to print this at home would be like, well, that needs a support, obviously, because if we're printing the paper by itself, the pages, the container by itself. Let me show you what that looks like. If we're printing this by itself, those will need supports. But if you print it upside down, it doesn't. So the idea is this is to be printed upside down. Now these holes here handle magnets, which I purchased. I've got the right size. I think they're 5mm by 2mm. But I printed at half size, and at half size that becomes 2.5mm by 1mm. And our printer's done. So it's going to churn a little bit, and we'll be able to take off what I was printing and share with you those. So the pages are meant to be chunky. I think they'll look more like paper, and they don't feel like a lot of the other printed container books that I've seen are kind of... they have that same computer paper look, because I think it's just easy to stack rectangles. So I carved these up to give them a little more life and soften the edges all sorts of stuff. But the epiphany of, as long as I keep the angle around 45 degrees down, if you print it upside down, it'll work. So I'll be right back. I'm going to grab these. Well, no, I'm going to let the plate cool for a moment. Anywho, here it is at half size. So this is essentially a quarter size. You know, the dimensions left and right have been cut in half, top and bottom have been cut in half. So this is like a quarter size. And I think it turned out great. Let me get the camera a little bit bigger here. I think it turned out great. This is with matte PLA for the cover and the base. There's no hinges in here yet. That's what I was printing. Slightly slimmer hinges because I think the matte finish on the books give it a little more tooth. So the posts didn't quite slide in to the hinges quite right. So each one of these pieces prints without support. So you can print that. These angles are just right so they can print by themselves with no support. This piece you print upside down. It slides into the base. It's not quite notched into place. It's got a little bit of a shelf, but it will, you know, you put a drop of glue in there. I didn't create pegs or anything like that. I didn't think I needed to. Maybe that's a design improvement that this will need at one point. But again, that pail is tough to see, but there are two magnet holes on the top and bottom of the on those top corners there. And then the cover. This also had depth underneath it. There were two hinges, not hinges, but these decorative corners, they had height to them that descended below the cover. So in a previous iteration, if you saw it on the screen, you would have seen that extra depth. I sliced it all flat so that this piece can just print flat on the print bed. And then I added these sort of hinge supports that are built into it. Not only does it make the hinges a bit stronger, it also means that we don't need supports to hold the hinges up. Then I just notch those shapes out of the book. The pieces just slide together, and we'll have a book. All it needs is felt at the bottom to make it a good dice tray. And hopefully these hinges, which will... I'll put some minis up for a moment. I'll be right back. Now, these are very small, and I don't know what changing the speed was going to do, but I definitely see some stringing on here. Trying to break that off the print bed without shattering it. Again, I never really planned this thing to be half size. I never expected this to print this book half size, but here we are. I shrunk it 95%. I'm hoping this will fit. I also was thinking about printing it on a slicker, with a slicker filament. We can also do things like run a. I might have to do that. Run a small file through this to clean up the interior of the hinge. It does work. We get this to work. Someone suggested using like a metal post, like a nail or a piece of actual hardware to put in here, and that might be a solution as well. But I think a more slender or a slicker bit of a slicker filament might work. I have some Sunlu PLA, which is very sturdy, it seems to be, and very, boy, I think one of these things just might need to be cleaned out. Well, that works. This one work? But I hope everyone's having a lovely day. The Kickstarter campaign's going really great. We just had another backer. I appreciate it so much. How do I see that? I thought there was a method to see it. I want to get this hinge in here, and I might snap off. Hopefully not. But yeah, the printer has been great. I've been really happy with the purchase. I think it has been a lot of fun to print all this stuff. I also printed a Christmas present. There's a cartoonist friend of mine named Marty Bowman. I sculpted one of his characters of his, one of the characters of his, and printed it out. And it was a bear to print. It was kind of fun. I ended up printing it in pieces. And creating like pegs and elements like that to put it all together. All right, so here it is, the first assembled book. It's kind of bowing open a little bit. I think the hinge is, I don't know if the magnet will hold it closed. That's asking a lot for the magnets. I might slim the pages down just a skosh, because it seems like it wants to just pop open. So if I close up the center a little bit, but the book hinges. Yeah. How about that? So, Thanksgiving, I taught myself how to how to sculpt using CAD software, using Shaper 3D. Brought that into Nomad Sculpt, and that's where we did the rest of this. So other elements were brought in, and it's a real time saver, lifesaver is Photoshop. Photoshop has a 3D function, and if you bring in a Illustrator file or SVG file, any kind of vector file, ideally something that's you've got solid pieces and transparent pieces, basically. You know, stuff's there or it's not there. And it will extrude the stuff that's there. So I brought in, I designed most of these graphics in Illustrator. I think almost all of them. I think I brought in some dice from some other projects I've worked on. I think I painted that texture in to create the kind of leathery part of the book versus the metallic part of the book. And I brought those all in as separate elements inside. Each one of those layers is basically a separate extrusion, and then layered them in a way to create the effect. And then said, all of that was done. So I sculpted the book first, not knowing what I was doing. Brought that into Illustrator, and then created these other elements around it. All I had was the hinges, not the hinges, but those corner bits. The bolts that were in the corner, the bolts that don't hold anything up, they're just decorative. Everything about this is decorative except the hinges. It's also possible that the filament wasn't fitting because of some stringing that happened on these prints. I printed a third little bolt, and that had a little more stringing on it, but it pretty much comes right off, but it does add some thickness and a little bit of texture to the bolt. And then I keep all the pieces I've done so far in this little container so my cats don't steal them or eat them. Among the things I was playing with is, and this is not with the smallest hinge, it's the smallest extruder nozzle. Printing my own Lego brick style figures. Just at the very least, I want to make Maledicta, the sword from the Middle Age, available for Lego figures. It would be nice to make a full Sir Quimp. He's pretty much got that body shape anyway. But there's little things like that, like designing my characters in the form of the Kenner, the classic Kenner style figures, which Reaction does now. The 3 3/4 inch tall figures with very limited articulation. Like the head will turn, the arms will move, but the arms tend to be like real stiff and the legs move at the knees and elbows don't bend, but everything else, the hands don't. They might rotate. But all that requires really fine-tuning how this printer prints, and also putting in a much smaller nozzle, like half the size of the nozzle I have here. Everything I'm doing now is kind of crude by the standards of a better equipment, or like a higher quality nozzle. But I'm super stoked with how this turned out. It looks good. The pages look good. I think a double-sized book. I think this is ready to share with people. But over on Patreon today, I'll be sharing the Grognard. So anyone who has, let me see, do I have to save this? No, we've already saved. Boy, all the different pieces of the book you can see there that I've been playing around with. In some cases, I had to re-export elements. Like I had fused two pieces together and something was lost along the way. Oh, here's a tip for anyone using Nomad Sculpt. This is awesome. If you have multiple elements that have been imported, or you've been working on from different documents, or building separately along the way, and you grab 4 or 5 of them and fuse them together because you want to remesh them at some point so you can bring them over to be printed. If you don't fuse them, later on, Mesh Mixer and other programs might just chuck a piece that's not completely connected, that's not fused. Because if it's a problem piece and it's not fused, it's going to get rid of it. So you want to fuse them together. Especially if you bring them over into the 3D programs or Mesh Mixer and suddenly you see it just gets rid of pieces, go back into Nomad, fuse stuff together. But fusing stuff, it means that the entire exterior of that shape is sharing a geometry. And the more triangles there are, the more points in that geometry there are, the bigger the file, the more complicated, the more likely the app is to crash, stuff like that. So to keep it simple, you have a maximum geometry. So again, the more complicated it gets, you've got a limited geometry. At some point, there won't be enough geometry to define the thing you want to print, and so parts will kind of crumble. And that's an easy way to get things to crumble. Partly is if it's making that decision on the fly. Let's say you got 4 or 5 different things that are there together. You want to fuse them all together. You're going to lose detail all around. You're better off remeshing the individual pieces first. Really get them in decent shape. Make the mesh on them uniform and consistent and solid before you fuse everything together. So I did that with a few pieces here. It's like, oh, every time I fuse them together, and I have to fuse them together if I want to print them, remesh them. I'm saying fuse. If you want to remesh them together, every time I do that, I lose detail. So what can I do? And then but one piece didn't get messed up, and I tried to figure out what it was, and it was the fact that I had remeshed it. So you remesh the things, all the individual pieces, and then fuse them together. Then you remesh them together, and everything held up much, much better. So this is the book. That's the pin. It needs 2 pins. I've got a little cap for the pin. I don't think you need that for that bolt here. And this is essentially a quarter size version of it. This is half the width and half the height. It will be almost 10 inches tall, because it's got to contain these books. So the idea is these will fit comfortably inside a full-size version of this. There are only 5 pieces that need to print: the cover, the back part of it. So the cover, the back part of it, which also includes the spine, the 2 hinge bolts, and then the pages. And the pages are a separate element which you'd glue in. And there will be room. What I'm going to resize here, and maybe we'll do this right now. On the half-size version of the book, I'm going to double the size of those holes for magnets. So I'll be able to print this and put the magnets in them, and then we'll have the complete test of, will this stay closed? And maybe, just maybe, squish the paper down a little bit. The magnets will be doing a lot of work. Or it's going to put stress on the bolts. And either way, I don't want that. So, pretty neat. All right, so where are we? Okay, so I'm going to increase the size of those pieces there, but first I'm going to get rid of my my hot plate. This is the plate that I print I make my sandwiches on. This is the plate that I print my sculpts on. I have a Bamboo Lab X1 carbon, and This is not the plate that comes with it. This has got a nice texture to it, and it helps the miniatures and the prints stick to the bed. The other ones are smooth, and you do things like put glue down or other stuff like that. So I'm just going to tuck this back into the machine. Now, so far, the biggest problems I've had with any of the prints have been that the tree supports, or the supports that are used to hold up overhanging pieces. Specifically, let me show you some. Open. Yeah, let's open up the hat. Now, when you print this out, you know, it's printing one layer of filament up from the bed, each one layer at a time, like a three-dimensional bitmap, like or a three-dimensional inkjet printer. So it prints each layer at a time. When it gets to things like this, which are like the feathers, which are overhanging, it needs to create supports so that when it gets time to be there, you've got something to connect to. So it adds all these supports along the edges. Those supports have either snapped off the bed, like they're not adhering to the printer bed, or they've snapped halfway through, and I'm working here and I hear a fling. I can hear a piece of plastic being flung because it comes loose, gets hit by the extruder nozzle, and gets, you know, flicked away, which the print fails immediately. So the choices have been to either strengthen those tree supports if I can, which means wider and wider brims at the bottom, holding them to the platform, thickening up this tree supports, which I think makes them heavier and more likely to be flung away, or printing things in pieces. And so that's what I did with a design of Marty Bowman's, who's a Pixar designer, Disney artist. He has the Toy Box Time Machine is a book that he did, and the creature he created in it was called the Yetiki, like a combination Yeti Tiki monster. It's meant to be like, here's a classic toy that we don't know. The Toy Box Time Machine are toys that should have existed but didn't. So lots of retro designs. And so this creature had big heavy hands, big heavy arms, a giant tiki mask, and none of it would stay. Trying to print it as a single unit did not work. It was also torturous because you print it 90% of it, or you print the whole thing and then you take it out and you realize, oh, that hand had failed and this finger's missing. So it's been churning for 10 hours, eating up a ton of plastic, and it's unusable. So now I'm actually designing things in pieces now. If they're going to print, the best thing about this printer has been sculpting for 2 years now and not fully grasping the realities of printing, especially filament printing, FDM printing. And that really changed how I structured Moose. I was just saying that I'm dabbling. I don't know if you can see this guy in beige, but printing up the pieces of these guys, attaching legs, attaching the arms is a kind of a bigger deal. I got to figure that out. But I would like to have at least some of the accessories from the Middle Age available for folks as Legos, like Sir Quimp's sword, things like that. But so far the book turned out, the samples, the demos I've created for the book have turned out great. Every piece, again, prints flat without any supports whatsoever. And so far they're printing flawlessly. The only thing we just learned now, it has a lot to do with the hinge. The hinge is a little tight, and I think oh no, it's going to flex up even without the paper there. So this is the book, and the pages are separate. I printed as a separate. Each one of these is 3 pieces plus the hinges. I think I need to make a little more give in that hinge. Yeah, that's why I did these half size, because these ones take about 3 hours each piece to make. So the cover takes about 3 hours to print, the side and back takes about 3 hours, and the paper takes about 3 hours. But so far, it's working just as I'd want. It's got the hinges. The only thing about it is it's, you know, maybe a little tight. Include some weed. It's kind of up to their GM and their dealer, Moose. But the campaign is going very, very well. 271 backers, which is great. We're almost coming up on where the Intoximancy was. Sorry, where the Intoximancy campaign was. True. well, our friend Dan Taylor is working on a weed-based RPG. I'm not sure how much of Intoximancy inspired him, but he's going all in. It's calling it the 4D20 system, and he's got a placeholder page if people check out 4D20 system for being alerted when it goes live. All right, let's do this thing I was talking about, the half-size printable. I want to create larger magnet holes for this thing. So to do that, we don't need the pin, we don't need the pages, we don't need the spine, just need the cover. So we have those holes already. We're going to add to the scene the magnets, which I already had. Now these magnets will be exactly the same size as the holes that are there, but this book is printed at half size, so we need to double the size of each one of these magnets and then use them to knock out the shape. These what happened? I think I might have just stretched them a little bit here. What the heck? They seem very tall. Hold on a second. Let me see what's going on here. Hey, buddy cat. I'm not sure, but these magnets seem like they're too tall. Like they seem like they're twice the height they need to be. So I'm going to delete those. Oh, no. That's not how you do it. I'm going to delete those magnets. I'm going to open up another file, an earlier version of the book. And see if our magnets are there and if they're the right size. It's likely that somewhere along the way they got distorted. Huh. Unless there's two magnet. Are there two sets of magnets here? I swear those seem as tall as they are wide. Okay, sure. Let's use the measurement tool, see if we can get a size here. Yeah, I swear they're like half the size. They're twice the size they should be. Yeah, 5 millimeters by 4. They should be 5 by 2. I think. Okay. I wonder if that's what I was thinking at some point. I doubled it, and so I thought I could knock it out of both sides to line up the magnets. All right. We will scale it vertically. assume the other one is exactly the same. Oh, that's rotation. I didn't want that. I wanted scale. I don't like that it moved. The one thing I'm going to do is, though, is I do want to join them together and increase their size just a little bit. That way, there's a little more room to put the magnets in there. I mean, I guess I don't have to sand the space, sand the holes down. Yeah, this could be snug. Oh, we'll make it work. We'll make it work. Fingers crossed. I might just print out the parts where they're knocked out to make sure that they're lining up properly. Okay, so let's just assume we have some semblance of an idea of what we're doing. Those are joined together. We're going to save these as, clicking this include selected objects only, which it says, are you sure? And then we'll save it with a new name, Book Magnets 2. I already had one that was called Book Magnets. And then we will open up a half-size book, selecting only the cover, solo, turning everything else off, adding to the scene magnets. Now those are the right size. Great. Now I'm going to clone these so we have a backup copy, because we need to not only knock these magnets out of the lid, we have to knock them out of the pages that the magnets will, you know, the other half of the pair, so that these can knock out properly. These top magnet. Before I punch these out of the top, I want to make sure that the other magnets are fitting into the pages properly. Yeah, I want to make sure there was enough room here. Oh, I'm so stupid. The whole point of this is to double the size of them, so that we cut the size in half. It'll work. Okay, sure. Delete. Top magnet. Solo. Clone this one, we'll call it original magnets, just so we have it as reference. So I'll separate this. There should be two magnets here. Take the first one, Gizmo tool, and we will... Actually, first I'm going to make sure our pivot point is smack dab in the center, so that way any changes we make mathematically to it will we'll change the size. I'm going to change the scale 200%, so 2 point. Okay, bad. it moved it someplace in space, and I don't want it to go anywhere. So we can just do this manually. All right, we'll do it manually. Pay good money to be able to just type in the number. That's something nice about Shaper 3D. Oh, that's it. There it is. Okay, we did it by eye. And a lot of undoing. Again, we are enlarging this shape to knock it out of the lid and the box of what we're printing, or what we'll be sharing. The idea is that this cavity will hold a magnet, and we need a set of magnets on the top, on the cover, and on the box. So what happened was I took the original one, which is large, almost 10 inches tall, about as large as a big 3D printer can print, the standard large printer, and printed it at half size, which is essentially quarter size. And the magnets are there, the magnets scale down in the corners. So I thought, once I saw this, I thought this would be great as it is, but I would need magnets in the corners anyway. So short of drilling cavities in this one, I'm going to make sure that I actually have a half-size book version of this. So I'm including double-sized spacers for holding magnets. And then I'll print these again. So I need to reprint the box and the lid. I still want to adjust the lid so it closes more neatly. I wonder. No, it doesn't work if it's upside down. I thought maybe there was something I did mathematically about the box, the paper of the box. But I think it turned out pretty awesome. I'm pretty happy with those. Okay. All right, so we've got our resized magnets. Oh, I can spell. So this will be the last stream of the year. Last planned one anyway. There might be others, but the idea is that, with the holidays, I won't be able to... I don't even think I'll have Wi-Fi for part of the time. All right, we've got our resized magnets. And I'll be using the time away to be working on... Let me hold off on... Let me delete those duplicates to start. I'll start with the cover here. I'm going to join these back together again. That might be enough. So I'll turn that invisible. I'll select the design, cover and corners. And we'll remesh really high. Now, I might have jumped the gun there. I'm going to have to see how these magnets look next to the base. to the box, the pages. So see how they line up. Make sure I'm not clipping a corner. I feel like I have to move it in a little bit. I've some of these. Oh, maybe not. Well, maybe not. I'm going to clone these resize magnets. Turn those invisible. Top paper, nice and high. Remesh. Now they have much larger cavities in there, and I should be able to print out... Ooh, that didn't quite work there. It's just touching the top of the paper above it. And fingers crossed that the cavity is large enough to insert that magnet. I think what's going to happen is I'm going to print just this corner at half size and see if the magnets will fit. But I'm confident now that they'll line up. Yeah, I'll do that later. I'm not going to muck around with it. I'm not going to spend time here on the stream doing that and sending it to the printer and all that stuff. As tempting as it is to do. Maybe? Alright, select the top paper. That's good. We're going to save. Save as. Selected objects only, so just the top paper here. New. Top paper punch and comma dash trash. I try to give the trash suffix to anything that I've saved out. Hey, NPC, good to see you. We're only here to watch you struggle. All right, so this is the open up the half-size printable book. Make sure all my pieces are still there and not gone. Good. We'll save that. NPC, I hope you're having a good day. I am doing good. The latest Kickstarter is well underway, and it's about 10 days old, and it's doing very well. People seem to be really this idea seems to really be resonating with people. And I've been sculpting and working on the Middle Age, which I'm excited for. I just shared on Patreon a plan for how I'm kind of retooling 2024. 2023 was a rebuilding year, I'd say, in a very good way. Lots of, my health is better. I've got a plan for Kickstarters that will take me through the year. So even if clients go the way of the dodo, which seems to be the case in a lot of fields at the moment, very unfortunately, like a ton of layoffs over at Hasbro, which probably means it was like 10% of their workforce. I think it was 10 or 20% of their workforce, which meant a lot of people over at Hasbro are now going to be freelancers or, trying to land on their feet somewhere else. It certainly helps NPC You know, I can feel it when I'm under the weather. I can just I start losing ground so quickly. Huh. Okay, that was just a weird optical illusion. I don't like that. Oh, that dent is the space from the previous magnet. Yeah, it really was double the depth. Well, it's okay. That'll nice reservoir to hold, possibly hold glue. Okay, so this is the one we're gonna trash. All right. Let's do this. So, got post processing on. I want to delete. We're gonna trim using the rectangle tool. Symmetry's off. Not sure what that missing piece is. We'll delete that. Look at this from the front. We don't need the whole height of this thing to test that, so we'll cut off the, ooh, boy, not square. Cut off the bottom bits of it. All right. Then we'll separate the pieces. But I know it was a rough year. It was a very rough year. I felt that in a lot of ways. It was also a good year. Had some real high points for me. All right, I'm going to export these guys. Got good to see you, NPC. I hope 2024 is a great year for you. Moose says, yeah, my friend is the director of marketing at Wizards of the Coast for D&D, and he lost a lot of his team to the layoffs when he was wanting to grow. And it seems like such a dumb corporate thing to do, to just slash 20%. Like, it is Thanosian a word? The idea that you would just, I know it'll solve our problems. Let's cut indiscriminately across the board 20%. 20% of the staff. It's like they only had one of the Infinity Stones or something. All right, let me switch this over. Spinning minis. I'm just exporting this STL to my desktop. And we'll probably hear my printer churning in the background, whether it wants to or not. But that's what we do now. All right, let me open this back up. Oh, no. I'm breaking stuff. Everybody. I have a lot of problems with Thanos' plan too. I know they were trying to make up for the comics being really weird. Like, Thanos in the comics is just doing this all because he's in love with death as a sentient entity. I have a lot of problems with Thanos' plan. Not every species was overcrowded. Some recover faster than others. By chance, you may have eliminated all the females and no males, or vice versa, of a given species and end up removing all that. Yeah, it's not a... And it's a temporary solution at best. The speed at which populations seem to increase, assuming every world is as horn-doggy as Earth is, and it's just that you know, this kind of rapid increase of population. Just, I think when I was in high school, the population of the planet was like cresting 5 billion. by 2050, what are we going to be at? 12 billion? 100 years from now, it's just going to go through the roof. Very temporarily, and now isn't the best time for all species at this. Exactly. Even if it were the right solution, it's silly to think all the species would be cut in half. And then the all life. Is it a planet where just the bees got culled accidentally? In the multiverse, that must have happened. Yeah, it's not a great plan. Someone said, I think it was someone's daughter who was watching it with their dad and said, couldn't he just double the amount of food there is? Couldn't he double the resources? I like that Thanos' plans were like outsmarted by a child. I had a villain in one of my stories who was trying to destroy the universe because they felt that the rules of the universe were unfair. And they thought, oh, this model came through janky as hell. Yeah, I might not trust Mesh Mixer to handle this one. He felt in this one Astounding Space Thrill story I did, the villain felt like life was unfair, hard to argue with him, and said that there was no fixing it. So the best thing to do would be to restart the universe and hope the next one's fairer. Okay. I wish I could share a preview of what I have here. Fascinating that it wants to take as long as it is. Oh, of course. I'm printing it full size. And the goal is the whole point of this was to print everything half size. It's amazing that something, just slightly increasing the size of something so increases the print time. If you cut the thing in half, you're going to quadruple if you enlarge the thing by, if you enlarge it 200%, you're increasing the print time 400%. All right, now we're talking. 15 minutes of print time. I'm gonna have this. No, I'm not gonna make everyone suffer and listen to that in the background as we work. All right, what else can we work on? Let's put our minis back up. I wanted to sketch another creature from this book, one I've advertised as. Where are we? That's excellent. Oh, and I got a quote from the manufacturer for the Grognard figure, which is going to be the first large figure, D&D large figure I've made. All right, we'll do a sketch of the what is it? The Hydrahedron. But I got a quote from the printer, the minis manufacturer. Now they do high-end casting of miniatures. I think it's resin casting, and they are kits. And they're going to have one for the cleric, the metadomain cleric. That's the one that's on the cover that we sculpted here on the channel, and also the Grognard. This is a FDM print I made of the Grognard. One of the books did not survive, the one on the top of the stack there, so it's missing that. But this is, actual size compared to a standard mini. And so it's twice the size of that's next to the Intoximancer. And this is an Intoximancer printed off the FDM printer. Again, with the 0.4 nozzle. Pretty impressed with the quality of the thing. compared to, you know, this is, given that there's a finer nozzle, this turned out quite nice. Who says, yeah, a lot of things would have been more reasonable, and after he held all those stones, he should have been able to exactly. What's the cost basis to produce ship each of the minis? There is a mastering fee. They have to create the molds. Not only they have to make them, and that's the big expense that's makes scale work a bit better. And then it depends on the amount of resin that's used in each one. I think they calculate it based on that. So they take a look at the size of the thing. Their estimates are based on approximation of how much resin they think they're going to need for it. And I'm not sure how technical their system is that they can use for approximating that. And then they polybag each kit and then put them in a box. And then they ship the entire a large box full of those to me. So that's really the interesting thing, is the cost of the upfront cost. That's one reason why I did that minis for the Middle Age campaign. I think it had a higher goal than any of the books, because I needed to print make at least that many minis to cover the cost of the mold making and the mastering. So they take the original files I send, very high resolution STL files, and they create, you know, I think they're using like really high-end FDM printers, not FDM, excuse me, high-end resin printers to produce the masters from which they make the molds. They also do a lot of the prep work, such as figuring out how to slice and dice my figures to make any sense. As an amateur sculptor, I made a lot of boneheaded mistakes, and now that I have a printer of my own, I'm recognizing just how dumb a lot of my choices were. Like, almost mean. Like I'm trying to punish anyone who wants to print these at home. Here's a 3-up print of the Intoximancer. So there's all these things dangling off of them, asking to break. Like the belt that's holding that tome onto his hip. Not that book could have been flush with his hip. The belt could have been flush with his torso. That's what every figure I've ever seen has done. You know, every little army man versus every miniature you get from WizKids or Reaper Miniatures or any of that stuff. They're all, you know, they're molded together. They're not like expecting there to be these weird cavities and hoops and loops. It's just mean. And so I'm printing it, and I'm seeing where all the sprues have to go, and it's like creating this kind of organic tree support, which moves up, you know, runs parallel to the body as best it can, swoops up, has to snake up and get inside the mouth of the flagon. It's just things I would do differently. That said, the Intoximancer prints better than every other print I've made. All the other ones have problems. Sir Quimp, the very first one I made. Like I did a version of him, and then I did a second one, and the second one was better. So I say this is the first one. It was the first one I considered finished. The arrows, they don't want to hold on. I can't believe there's one on his torso that's holding. That printed without supports. I think. No, that must have had a support. Must have. It's insane. So one of the things I have to do if people want to print this, I have to create holes, and all these things sticking out of them have to be separate pieces that you print and then slide into place. It's there's just too many cavities, nooks and crannies, asking for trouble. But there at the company that is mastering these, they slice the figure up completely. Like they'll take pieces off. When you get the kit for Sir Quimp, the cape is a separate piece, and the axe is attached to it, as are, I think, the arrows. Or there's holes for the arrows, excuse me. The axe is attached to the cape. So you just assemble the figure, and then you just drop the cape and the axe on him. It just slides right into place. They're so smart about how they've done this. So they clearly have put their 10,000 hours in where I have not. And I was showing this before. I'm still working on a clean print of this. I got sidetracked by the book. And the plan is to have a full-sized... Cave! How are you? The plan is to have a full-sized print of this made. So far, there's still some issues. Need to add a couple more supports to get the full-size one printed. But certain places are just, like, really good. And this is at the 0.2... This is at the 0.2 layer height. So, you can look closely. Fortunately, I've put so much texture on these things that it masks a lot of the layer lines. I think if I was printing this as something more... Oh, thanks, Gabe. Here's the one I'm really proud of. This is at half size. A container. And then at full size, this will have 4 magnets, excuse me, and the cavity will be large enough to hold the zines. So you can have this on your shelf. And then I want to put felt. I'm going to cut felt for the bottom. I've been thinking about this. And all of this, and this thing, I'm so happy. No supports needed. Everything about this thing prints. This part, the lid prints. I shaved the entire bottom of this lid, the book cover, so it can print flat without supports. Actually building in hinge support, so it prints flat, no supports. The back prints, no supports, and the pages print flat. And I also recommend you print the pages upside down, because then the little nuances I've added, which will not print right side up. You'll need supports for those, but you turn it upside down, it prints fine without supports. So I'm getting smarter. I'm getting less dumb. How about that? And this illustration was created for my Patreon supporters. I hadn't drawn Sir Quimp and the Baby Dragons in a little while, and I wanted to do something for the holidays and talk about the plan for the upcoming year and Patreon. The idea is that Patreon is going to have the Middle Age comic comes back, more lore episodes, text about the lore of the world, stuff I haven't really shared, like the name of the world. And the thought for a while has been that it is called Mid, M-Y-D-D. And there is the 2 big holidays are Midsummer and Midwinter. And that also kind of makes all the people who live on the planet Midlings, which I like. And just talking about the world, and Steve hasn't set up any commands to link, evidently. No, I did. And I don't know why Streamlabs has decided not to share them. I tried typing it earlier and it didn't play nicely. Every once in a while I gotta go into Streamlabs and just smack the side of the machine. And the Kickstarter is at prayershandbook.com. Thanks, Moose. I gotta go into Streamlabs. It's like I just want to stream, and I don't want to have to... It's like 3D printers. I don't want to think about it. I don't want to auto bed. I don't want to level the bed every time. I want it to auto level. Whereas Streamlabs makes me go in there and level the bed every gosh dang time. And then you can hear it making my computer scream. And it's basically just a chance for them to force me to log in and see their ads. Yeah, I just got to go in there and turn their cloud bot in again. Turn that cloud bot on again. Otherwise, it won't do what it's supposed to. There we go. Cave What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing, Cave? Why? Why? Did you get that gig? Have you landed a job? Has corporate America wised up and handed you the keys to the executive bathroom? I want you. Don't want you spending money willy-nilly on nonsense like my nonsense. But this STL will be... I'm going to add this to the campaign. I'm really happy with how it turned out. I don't know if I'll be able to print a full-color one before the end of the holiday. Because the cover at full size takes about 10 hours. If I set the printer to silent mode, that becomes 20 hours. And it eats a ton of filament. It looks like it would do 200 grams of filament. So about a fifth of a spool. Not quite. But I just got off the interview with Gen Con and it went great. And so I'm celebrating. Fantastic. That's a great idea. A perfect match. Yeah, that's great. You have all the recommendations in the world, right? You have your references. There'd be like, well, they have most of those people on speed dial or they're connected to on Facebook, right? And it's something that connects with the world you want to be part of, and that's wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Excellent. Excellent. I haven't seen anything about Gamehole Con for this year. Have I missed it? They keep saying that they're going to update us, and I haven't seen anything. I want, I don't know if I need to be refreshing their link every hour. Cave, I have time tomorrow night. You said Wednesday? That would be great if tomorrow night works for you. Happy to help however I can. But thank you for our new supporter. I don't know how to say that. Kaveji cart? I think it's a shopping cart. Kaveji cart. All right, so we gotta create a new monster. Switch goggles. But thanks, Cave. I really appreciate it. Okay. Set this to color, our usual shtick for starting this up. Yeah, so I have to commend Hasbro on really finding a way to end the year pretty much as they started it, with like a epic faceplant. It's really interesting too that so many people who were absolutely beating the I hate WotC drum, they're mellowing now. I'm not sure if it's that because they are now becoming establishment in some way. I don't want to look at it cynically, but it's such a 180 because it felt like they were beating this anti-Hasbro, anti-WotC drum, and it's not a bad drum. It's a pretty good drum. But they've now done a bit of an about face. Like, I was really harsh on them. I'm glad there's guys like Roll for Combat that are still, streaming every day about the horrors of Hasbro. They still haven't really... Yeah. Ugh. All right. So the creature we're supposed to draw here is called a Hydrahedron. I don't know what it is. I just like the name. This is one of the ones where I was like, it's like Grognard. I had the idea, had the name Grognard. I knew I wanted to be kind of what it turned out to be. I thought there might be more of a alcohol element, grog, leaning into that a little bit. But the more I was thinking about it, and more thinking about the people who actually think of themselves as grognards, who call themselves grognards, who, in a way that they could see this and actually go, yeah, that's about right. That's what I want. I want it to be a thing where it is a almost like they can reclaim it, like the word nerd, like they can take it and say that's fine, that's who I am, that's what I am, I'm a grognard. So it would be real easy to make it insulting, like a Mad Magazine parody of like kind of a, you know, it would have been real easy to make Grognard just like comic book guy from The Simpsons, right? That would be the kind of almost that would be the dumb joke. But I thought making it more, also something that you want the dungeon master wants to take this miniature, put it on the table, and have like an effect like, oh boy, like, all right, everybody, start casting bless and get all your prep work in place. Cave says, part of me thinks that I really haven't heard anything positive about WotC products over the past couple of years, so a shakeup of the people creating those products is justified, but alas, that's not what the layoffs are about, right? It was more of like a Thanosian 20% off the top, like, let's get rid of 20%. Because they probably looked around, are there any companies we can buy? Anything? Nothing we could buy? Okay, they'll plan B, fire a percentage of the staff. Look how we've cut expenses. I mean, you could create Tim Cask as the Grognard. Yeah, I thought this is yeah, I'm really happy with it. All right, but the Hydrahedron is either it has to be like a tendril creature. A lot of hydras are like snake-headed creatures, with the various tendrilled heads. But in this case, I almost want it to be crystalline, like low poly. And then the heads would be shaped like polyhedrons. Maybe it is a big icosahedron. No, it's like I feel like I'm beating this visual metaphor to death with this book. At some point, meta becomes self-destructive. That looks like a beholder. Yes. Shane, how are you? Could each head have a triangular face so to create the D20 if refract? Yeah. Shane, good to see you. So this is going to be my last stream for the year, last scheduled one. I might have an impromptu stream, but late Thursday night, I'm hitting the road for some family. And I'm excited. While I'm away, I will be working on the Prayer's Handbook. I also will be spending time with family. I've got grief in the past for just being face down working the whole time. Just like my head down, face down? No, head down, working the whole time. Eventually, with enough alcohol, face down. But until then, head down, working, and people... And sometimes I've actually had work to do. I've had assignments through the holidays. I don't... Nothing I can do about those. If a big project falls on my lap tomorrow, they won't see me. But the last holidays, I was actually able to spend some time with people, and it was surprisingly well received. So most hydras, I'm thinking about like the ones in Warcraft look like dinosaurs. That seems uninspired to me. It seems like I think about I'm connecting them in my head with plant life. So to avoid the beholder idea, it can't be floating. It has to be connected to the ground in some way. Undulating, like a mass that moves forward. Copper Skull, Swell Birds, had a good time. And then surprisingly, yeah, I actually had a very good time. I don't have a lot in common with them, but yeah, it's fun. It's weird because I've created a cocoon for myself of just like a nerd cocoon, like everything in my world is about creating stuff, making stuff, and it probably serves me well to get out. Oh, that's nice that you get along with them. Oof, 10 hours. The heck was that about? I must have missed. You went, so Shane, piecing this together, you went to Texas on a 10-hour road trip with the in-laws. Was it a like one of those Hyundai Cubes cars? The ones that kind of look like a lunchbox without the handle? Oof. I was thinking what, like a single eye for the creature, and then it's like, oh, okay, now we're getting into the beholder territory again. Gotta stop that. I feel like if the whole thing is crystalline, let's say that. I'm not sure how I'd sculpt that. Okay, that's it right there. Why is it called a hydrohedron? Because this is again the Horta from Star Trek. These are its eggs. These icosahedrons on the ground. I don't have to put any dice into the design of the character, of the creature. It's just that his eggs are d20s. We went to do bird watching. That area is with the largest remaining wild flock of whooping crane. Winters. Originally it was going to be just my wife and I, but in-laws came along as well. Got pretty lucky and saw 20. Oh, that's great. Would you want to look at inspiration, rather avoid seeing anything that might influence you? I find if I see things, I'm like, okay, that's good to see, because I don't want to do that. If someone's done it, I don't want to do it. So if you see that there's something out there that's that inspiration, you know, sometimes it has an opposite effect. But yeah, it's one of the things where it's a lot of young writers. You'll say, well, if you want to be a good science fiction writer, read a lot of science fiction, and they're like, I don't want to be inspired. I don't want to steal ideas. I don't want to. And really, it's like, you don't want to know if it's been done already. Oh, that's cool. That feels very Draenei from World of Warcraft. Yeah, that's charming. What kind of creature is that? Is that a dragon, or is that supposed to be a hydra? Is it like a gem hydra? We got to see it too. Oh wow, that's amazing, Shane. Whoa. Open art AI? I don't think I want to see this. I'm less inclined to see anything from Open Art AI. Yeah, yeah, the idea of having those kind of crystal shards, I don't think that doesn't feel particularly proprietary to me. It feels like every crystalline diorama. I think it's well executed. I think it's a well executed illustration. I don't know about the web. The web other image looks like it's the OpenAI one. Looks like it might be WebP. Thankfully, my default browser does not support WebP, so I'd have to muck around with Chrome or something like that, and that will avoid me from keep me from seeing the AI. So I think this whole thing looks crystalline, much like Marlon Brando's head in Superman 2. That's a reference everybody will get. And I think making this more glass-like, not so. That one almost looked like it was a dragon that was wearing almost like geode armor of some kind. I think if I can make this so it's actually feels like it's refracting light, and maybe it's got pinks and light colors kind of shimmering through it. It's absolutely a case where once I sculpt one of these heads, I'll build the jaw as a separate piece, and we can flex that separately, so maybe get some different expression just with the mouth. And then we'll just put those D20s on the ground beneath it. Boy, this thing's going to be huge if it's going to be... because that one had like a panther body. That kind of like. So when I first saw it, when you showed it, I thought it's kind of it looked like a crystalline displacer beast. But those are heads. I'm trying to think what else it reminds me of. Like there's a Godzilla design, wasn't there? Like one of the like 2000s-ish Godzillas that had like the spines were absolutely crystalline and had almost like shoulder pads. Santa will put you in the naughty list for looking at AIs. No, it's just more of a pain in the ass. When I try to open Google Chrome, it sometimes takes its sweet time on my Mac. I'm a couple of operating systems behind, and so Google Chrome can play nicely sometimes, but then other times it's like a nightmare. I have not seen the new Godzilla, Shane. I want to. I've heard great things. One of my dear friends is a big old Godzilla nerd, and he was raving about it. And he's not an easy mark when it comes to those films. Yeah, I was a fan as a kid. Every Thanksgiving on Long Island, the like the week of everyone would be off of school, they would play in the afternoons monster movies, starting with like Mighty Joe Young, and then doing the Godzilla run and Mothra and King Kong. And I loved it, but man, it's a slog to like. You were just waiting for the monsters to show up. Recently, there was one called Shin Godzilla, which I saw. I didn't hate it. I liked it. It was weird. It made me feel like, has Godzilla gotten in the public domain somehow, and someone decided to make something really bizarre? But I like the design of from what I've seen of the new Godzilla -1. Godzilla looks like the classic design. It's a cat-like face, wide shoulders, kind of buxom, hippie in a way. Okay, what if there's a cop-out from the... I just create the whole thing in a explosion of crystals that it's coming out of. Now it's more... At that point, it's more of a sculpture than a miniature. It's got a... I can't think too much of the environment. I think those are weak designs when it's stressing, unless it's a water creature where it's like in the water, and then you're just going to put it on the map, and the boat's on the map, and basically the table becomes the surface of the water. Then something coming out of that is fine. Unless this thing just has a burrowing speed. Those old movies, late nights back when the Sci-Fi Channel was actually sci-fi, not sci-fi. Does this monster shed crystals D4? Yeah, difficult terrain. Yeah, the cover of the book, the cover of the Prayer's Handbook doesn't have a D4 on it. I couldn't figure out a place for it. It's also, it's not a very... In 2 dimensions, it's not a particularly interesting shape. D4 caltrops, indeed. So I think, the idea is currently that, okay, these will be crystalline. I still don't know what this is going to look like. Let's lower the opacity, work on one face, and see if I can get that in a way that I like it. So I've been exchanging links with other campaigns. A couple of other Kickstarters reached out to me and said, would you like to trade links? It's probably one of the best ways to promote your Kickstarter project, is to reach out to other people who are doing something in a similar environment, like, or for a similar system. Like if there's another 5e system out there, that I'll promote theirs if they can promote me. That's happened with comics. I've had some very nice exchanges with people, even though their projects were infinitely more popular than mine. When Jeff Smith was doing his new Bone collection, we traded promotion. I think I got a lot more out of it than he did. But super nice of him. I don't think I like the stalagmite. And I think this is a mistake. I made the eyes too big. And smaller eyes just make the creature look larger. I'm already imagining myself just duplicating lots of these gems over and over and over again on the sculpt. I'm planning for laziness. But after the stream today, anyone who's the Patreon supporters will get the Grognard sculpt. This will also be available to the campaign. Once we hit the 10k goal, the STL will be added to the campaign, but mostly the mini will be added. And so I just got a quote from the company that's producing them, that will be producing the minis, and I will be we're going to be making the first large mini from the Middle Age, which will be the Grognard. I think that's appropriate. I think it's the best sculpt I've done yet. I'm very excited for it. Also, I didn't really, again, amateur, I didn't think about how close that knee is to the ground there, and you can still see some supports there that I could dig out with a file. But folks, I want to take a quick break. David! This one is the Hydrahedron. David, good to see you. They're square at the bottom. They're half of a D8. Is that right? All right, folks. I will be back shortly. Talk amongst yourselves. Thanks again for all the support. I'm going to stretch my legs. I'll see you back here in a few. And we're back. Our full D8. Most of the Earth is flat. They really just pyramids at the bottom. Oh, the music was nice. I'm sorry. I just can't keep playing that long. I get tired. So, folks, hello. My name is Steve Conley. I write and draw the webcomic The Middle Age, which you can read at middleagecomic.com. I also create RPG stuff like Intoximancy, Death Dealing, and then now on Kickstarter, Prayer's Handbook. The Prayer's Handbook for the Metadomain Cleric. Congratulations. Restream says, congratulate me for 100 messages, including the automated ones from Streamlabs. So that's time to update the resume. I've been 3D printing some stuff and sculpting some stuff, including the book of the Prayer's Handbook. This is a piece I finished printing yesterday. This is a half size, technically quarter size. It's half the height, half the width of the Prayer's Handbook. It's in 3 pieces. It will have a cavity in here large enough to hold my zines in Toxomancy. It doesn't hold the hardcover books. The hardcover books are just too big. I don't think anybody's 3D printer at home will be able to make a book large enough to contain the magnificence of the hardcover books. But this will contain the zines. So currently there's a smaller one, which I really like how these turned out. I sort of deckled the edges of the paper. Let me call this up. Yeah. It says it's coming, but it's already live. I do not mind showing this again and again and again. Dice box, exactly. The main one is meant to function as a dice box as well. So one of the things what I'm really happy with, as I talked about before, was that none of this prints without supports. You don't have to worry about support trees or different kinds of overhangs and things like that. Every part of this prints without a support of any kind. I made the cover of the book completely flat, and the hinges have a nice little 45-degree support. Like 45 degrees is apparently the magic number when it comes to making things print without supports. If they've got a 45-degree ledge helping them out, this is going to change how I sculpt everything. So this originally, the cover of the book initially had all sorts of indentations on here, and these kind of corner pieces went to the back of the book and kind of created a nice little cradle for the pages underneath. All that stuff made this cover so much harder to print, and I thought everyone who has to print one of these things, who wants to print one of these things, is going to thank me, because now it just prints flat. You don't have to think about it. The only thing about printing this at half size is that the holes for the magnets are too small. I don't have magnets that are 2.5 millimeters across. I've doubled the size of those holes so that for to create a small one, which people can use in a dice box. It also very neatly does hold. If the pages will hold, because I didn't glue the pages in, it'll hold the deck of death dealing cards pretty nicely. The idea would be that the pages you print upside down, because that helps some of the little cutesy fiddly bits I put on there print. It's like there's little bits of paper that are hanging off, and because they're hanging off, they would need supports. But if you print them upside down, suddenly they're growing up, and then you don't need the supports. But I'm thinking about creating a nice little hollow underneath the ledge of the bottom of this, so that I worry about how it will affix. But just a slim one, so that you can, maybe you don't have to be quite so perfect when you place down a piece of felt. So if you place that felt here and then you put this on top, that little cavity will clean things up for you. So it'll still feel like it fits nicely, but you'll still have the felt bottom part of the cabinet. I mean, I guess you can do it without the plastic, but I bet it's pretty... Science! It's pretty loud. But I think it's tall enough to hold dice. Just barely enough to hold... Real close. It's going to have to be very thin felt. So, it will hold them. But really happy with how it turned out. Some little tweaks to make, but I'll make the STLs available from my web shop, and it'll probably be something all my Patreon supporters will get, because I'm upping the amount of love my Patreon supporters are getting. Alrighty. Where was we? Hydrahedron. Oh, and today, everyone who wants to get the Grognard can get that off my Patreon page. It will be available as an add-on. We're on track at the $10,000 mark to make the mini available. I just mentioned before, I did get a quote from the manufacturing company for the Grognard, and it's doable. I was worried. I think the mini itself might be $40. I hate to do that. It's like if the regular ones are 25, 20. I just don't see how else to do it, given the cost. But I think people will dig it. I think people will. It might be $38 if I can squeeze it, if I can get it down a little bit. The trouble is, when it's $38, then I have to calculate the idea that Kickstarter takes 10%. Change the design someone and just get to casting it yourself. I feel like that's not the way to go. I mean, I don't have a resin printer. If people do want them, they can get it themselves. I do feel like that's a decent option. And if there's ever a professional resin company out there who sells minis that wants to license my designs and sell them and just give me a cut, I'm all about that. I would take a nice little one-time fee. I see a lot of mini companies actually doing that, but then I also worry about them just finding their way into some repository, and I gotta think there's just a huge bootleg market of sculpts. But I don't want the money from thieves anyway. I don't want their dirty money. But I'm really happy with how this came out. The book, the pages turned out nice and chunky. It feels like an old tome. This smaller print didn't survive, so that's coming out. Which version of the book is this? Half-size printable. I thought I fixed that. Oh, I fixed it in the larger one, didn't I? Full-size printable. Yeah, I just took that small print out. I do feel like there's other little tweaks I need to make, like cleaning this up. It's that solution I was talking about before. Didn't survive. Didn't survive. I'm not sure what this is related to. If it didn't survive the 3D printing process, the small print. Oh, it was. So when I have the high-res files and all the sculpting I had done to set up this text on the side here, when I fuse it with the rest of the shape in order to print it, otherwise Mesh Mixer might just chuck it. When I'm cleaning up the print and removing things like errors and stuff like that, manifold errors, if the pieces aren't fused together, like the spine is a single piece. The spine of this book and the back of the book and the text and all that on it is all defined by one single mesh. They're all fused together and it's all defined by that. If there's not enough mesh to go around, it will fractalize. Not fractalize, it'll fracture. That's what it'll do. It will... well, that doesn't... engraving the small fine print doesn't change the... It's not a printing problem as much as there wasn't enough memory to go around. There wasn't enough mesh to go around, to literally go around. So what I found was a solution, and I can try this, is to bring the pieces in, remesh them, and then mesh them together. I think what it is when it's a very low poly shape. It's basically when I bring it in, like the Prayer's Handbook logo here, the solution for that was to take the Illustrator file that's the logo, which is the logo from the book and from the Kickstarter and everything else, bring that into Photoshop and extrude it there. Photoshop has got really solid extrusion STL tools. I didn't know they were there. They work great. You can print to STL and it exports a perfect STL. I bring that in. Now that STL is flat. It's not going to follow the curve of a book. So I have to cut that shape so that it does match the curve of the book. So I take it and I took the curve of the book before it had its texture, and I basically Venn diagrammed them. So the parts where they overlapped, it kept. So the front of the letters had that shape in it. Or I did the other way around, which I took that curve of the book, I notched it out of another shape, and then used that new shape as a die to cut that shape out. Somewhere along the way, there wasn't enough mesh to properly properly create the effect I was going for. And instead of just saying, okay, we're going to make this thing infinitely large, it said, well, we'll work with the budget we have and do the best we can. And that's where it cuts corners, literally cutting corners. And that's why things like the metadomain cleric tagline underneath that fell apart, because it just wasn't enough mesh to define it, and so it did its best. What I realized was yesterday while working on this program, if you remesh each individual element right before you then mesh them all together, they tend to be stronger. Like, so what you're basically saying, so somewhere along the way I made a lot of changes to things, and you mold things, you adjust things, you stretch things, distort them, and the mesh of that thing gets further and further twisted and mushed in weird places. So now you've got this weird mushed mesh, a mush mesh. And then you take another weird mush mesh and you try to remesh those together, and it's the two things just are like, they're not in a good shape. It's a relationship with with two very problematic individuals. If you get each one of the people in the relationship in good shape beforehand and they get together, then it might last, and it maybe won't fall apart quite so quickly. This analogy does not apply anywhere else in life. So that's what I'm doing now. Is like I take each one of the pieces and I'll remesh them before remeshing them all together. So like if you basically take a piece, you're not really remeshing it in a way that's saying like combine it with other pieces, but you know, get them right and then combine them and they come out much better. So there are many elements of this which I might have to do that in order to make sure things are stronger. Now some things just can't be brought in any higher resolution. That starburst around the D20, I brought that in about as best as I could. And it's going to have some weirdness to it. That's just part of it. I mean, the 3D print is going to have textures as well. At the smaller size here, there's absolutely parts of this where it sort of almost dithers. Like, I don't have Stargate on to make up for my I feel like I have to respond eventually. All right, let's get back to the monster. Spinning minis. Monster. And we're back. Is the stream over yet? Just kick everything. All right. So I like this thing. We were talking too much about Godzilla. I think Godzilla snuck into the design somewhere. Eric, how are you? I tried to watch the new Godzilla a second time, but the people in the theater were so rude. I had to leave and ask for a refund. The people in the theater were so rude? That's awful. Another group kept talking. Oh, that sucks. But Godzilla's a good baby movie, right? That's like a good. You want to bring your toddler to that. I think maybe it's like a sharper kind of. had some luck with that tinfoil helm we sculpted the other day of reducing the poly so much that it created a faceted shape. I think that might be the way to go for the dragon. Not the dragon, but the Hydra. Bad parents are the death of... Yeah, I've heard really good things about it. Okay, let's try to sculpt this. I don't know. A little early to jump right into the 3D program, but let's see what I can do. Well, that sucks, Eric. Sorry about that. Try this. I'm just going to see if I get a basic dragon shape and then reduce its poly to such a point where it will become more interesting, closer to what we're looking at for a dragon made of faceted material. Maybe the idea is to get it as smooth as possible and then reduce the poly count and see if that does what we want. I'm okay with the eyes being spheres underneath the what's a smooth tool. And that's how you make a Skeksis. A D8 diamond shape would work for the eyes. Oh, that's good. Yeah. Oh. Well, David, your stream is missed. All right, let's move this eyeball up, out a little bit. creature can see what it's doing. Again, this will be my last stream of the last scheduled stream of the year. There might be an extra one tucked in there somewhere, but I will start traveling starting this week, and if I am able to stream, it will be impromptu at best. I'll be traveling away from my 3D printer. I won't know what to do with myself. Let's try this. I'm going to clone this shape. I'm going to mirror this eyeball too. Mirror right to left. Alright, we clone this creature shape. I'm going to save as Hydrahedron. I'm going to try reducing the poly count. It's probably very early in the process to be doing that, but we'll see what we can do. I think there's some cool stuff to do as well. I had some luck with this when playing with that tinfoil effect. Let's say around 20. Let's see what that does. No, it can be better than that. A little lower. What is that? Kenny, thank you so much. Another backer. I'll be honest, I don't miss the schedule. Well, thanks. The more organic sculpting was what I wanted to do with the Nomad, but my stuff was always crap. Oh, thanks, David. He had a really Chamberlain look about him. But this is what I want to try. So this is what I was talking before about remeshing things, and then it spreads the mesh evenly across the surface as best it can. With this limited surface, you can see it's struggling with all sorts of. This is the kind of broken geometry which it can't print. You can see lines that cut through each other, creating weirdness. So when a slicer tries to figure this out and send it to a printer, it chokes. So the idea is to get this close to where we want and then smooth it all out. But with these things evenly spaced, I think now taking the drag tool, I'll put the wire on so you can see the grid that we're dealing with here. Like, we can now mess with it in a way that will lean into that geometry. Still, the eyebrows are fakakta, as the kids say. I want to smooth those out before I get too far along. Like, before we even do any of this stuff. But let's go back. Oof, we don't need to see the mesh. Let's go back further. I do think a smaller eye is the key to this thing. Again, the smaller eyes make the thing seem larger. Oopsie. But we do want the thing to have bifocal vision. Have binocular vision? Or bifocal vision. That's what I have. Thank you again, Kenny, for your pledge. but I may stream less this year. It is interesting, David. I haven't been doing this now 2 years, which has been fun. It does feel a bit like an obligation. It feels like a well, I gotta do this. It's tough too because I'm in a relationship where it's like my schedule is perceived to be, well, my schedule is more flexible, right? I can just work till 3 in the morning, but mine is less rigid, and so this adds an unusual amount of rigidity to my schedule, which I'm not used to. I absolutely admire people who can stream endless hours, but certainly with the new year, with doing more of the middle age, which is part of my plan. So let's talk about the year ahead, since if this is the last episode of the stream. Of the year. My goodness, I'm tired. I'm weary. I'm looking for a few days off. I hope they actually turn out to be days off. But we have this Kickstarter for the meta domain cleric, and the goal is to deliver the PDF in January and the books soon thereafter. As soon as I can get the books from the printer, I'll be sending them out, with the goal of having the next Kickstarter in February, which is Zine Quest. Zine Quest is the kind of thing that got me making zines to begin with. I found that while the 4 to 8 time, David says, alright, I've seen a bit. David says, I found that while the 4 to 8 time works for viewers all over the world, it's right in the middle of the day, and what the heck just happened? Middle of the day, and makes the before and after time kind of unproductive. Yeah, that's how I feel, David. It's like the doing 4 to 7. It's like starting at 3. I have to be gearing up for streaming, and then there's less time. I'm going to South Carolina. My lady's family lives there, and we're spending my holidays there. They're lovely people. They're kind to have me join them. My family is pretty much spread out all over the country. I was going to say the world. Pretty much spread out all over the world. I've got many brothers and sisters, and they are everywhere. I am the oldest of 2, and then I have halves and steps, and in that case I'm the 9th of 11, and they are all around the country. Okay, we're going to add a bit under the eye here. I do like how this is kind of falling apart, like it's like we're running out of mesh, and I don't want to. That's interesting. Something keeps popping up and hiding the windows. I want to blame Streamlabs. I think I blame Streamlabs. So I'm hoping to see my stepmother. She sometimes comes to Florida. I'm hoping to see her at some point, probably in January, but we'll see the lady's family for the holidays. We'll be doing 2 events on the 24th, neither more than an hour drive. Then on Christmas Day, we're going to my sister's place, which is 8 minutes. Oh my goodness, that's wonderful. Yeah, this isn't too bad. It's like 3.5 hours. The only real pain in the butt is the cats. As I probably mentioned before, one of my cats has got has seizures. Idiopathic seizures. Idiopathic is, we're going to charge you $2,000 to tell you we don't know. But because of that, for the last 6 or 7 years, he's needed medication daily, and so that really hampers travel and things like that. But he hasn't had a seizure in 5 years, so he's taking less of the medication now. Now I want to do something here. I'm going to clone this guy. You save this guy. And I'm going to use the trim tool and the lasso tool. Don't think we need symmetry because we're looking at it from the side. Mistake. Error. I'm going to adjust the pivot point. Thank you, Shane. I could have just split the bottom here. I felt like I wanted to keep some of that other material in place if I could, and then just hollow this area out. So having that sick kitten means travel's very difficult, hard to coordinate, and it means driving with a car full of cats, or at least 2 cats, which adds to the stress. By and large, they'll remain quiet, but they will absolutely also sing the song of their people through much of the trip. We doing oh, Steve, I have an idea for a YouTube streaming show that I'd like to do with you and Nate. A fun graphic design challenge. All right, I'm in. You had me at fun. Oh. Turned off symmetry for that, and it was still off. So for the bottom of this jaw, it gets really thin there, right? And so the trouble when you're working in Nomad Sculpt is that if you start sculpting here, it will mess up the other side, because there's not enough material there. So what we want to do is we want to go into here, into the filter tool, and hit front facing vertex only. And we also want to remesh this thing quite a bit if we can. I'm also going to hit separate, see if there's any other floating pieces. There are not. But front facing vertex means that no matter how much I draw on here, on the top side, it won't affect the bottom. So we're digging into the shape there. We're subtracting a ton of material. Eventually we'll dig through the shape, and then we'll break the geometry. But by and large, it won't affect the other side. You know, it will avoid affecting the other side as long as it possibly can. So with that selected, now I can create the kind of ridge of the inside of the mouth here. which it desperately needs. And having that setting means I'm not going to distort the underside. The underside still needs a ton of work. I'd like to put this a frill of some kind or some sort of thickening bit. All right, you got to get back to house repairs painting. David, so good to see you. If I don't see you before Christmas, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and yeah, absolutely count me. Anything with you and Nate, I'm in. But we still got to play D&D. We got to figure that out. Put that on our list for 2024. But love to Julia, and I hope it's a beautiful, safe, warm holiday. All right, I'm gonna smooth out the edges of this thing a little bit. Okay, a lot bit. I could see things falling apart there. It was like didn't know what to do with itself, so we'll mangle this thing. Sounds good. So I like this creature a lot. I don't think it's anything like the Hydrahedron. So I'm going to keep mucking with this thing, but I think we have to pull it back a little bit. Let me just hold on to this guy over here. We're going to put a new folder. Hydraskexes. Let's try a new creature. How are we doing? 622. Doing great. Doing great. I'm gonna try this. I think I just needed to be. I think because it's crystalline, I feel like I want it to be more alien and less lizard-like. I don't want it having kind of lizardy elements to it, but not quite so draconic. The other design had a bit of dragon in it, had a bit of bird in it. I think that's why I was kind of feeling a little skexy. I do think I need to build it up in a very... I'm turning the pressure way up. I do think I need to build things in a chunky way so that when we reduce the polygon count, that it maintains some kind of integrity. I think for it to feel more alien, it can feel lizard-like. I like the idea that this is a Hydra, this thing that kind of snakes around and has that kind of sleekness. So let's use the trim tool and shave pieces off with this. So it's not so much, we're not kind of coaxing the shape. We're absolutely going to be like just forcing it to be sharp. crystalline creature wouldn't breathe, would it? So nostrils aren't necessary, unless it helps the, artistically, if it helps the profile of the creature look a little more intimidating. But there's something really intimidating about something which is like featureless, like you don't know its intent. I think that's what can make birds or insects or lizards scary, is there a lack of relatability. That's meant to be cut. But thanks for everyone who's backed the latest Kickstarter. The response has been very, very kind. I saw a review by the World of Game Design guys over the weekend. They have a regular stream where they talk about noteworthy Kickstarters. That was adding too much personality to the creature. I think I want to have less personality. Even that looks like a mouth. I think I want this thing to look like it just sort of, maybe it's just sort of terrifying, just sort of kind of dead-eyed. I don't hate that at all. This is a crease tool. I like that. I don't know what that is. It doesn't look like. Maybe it's a nostril. Oh no, that starts to look like a mouth. It's interesting. It's almost like it's fire. Remesh, and I'll drink more coffee. How's everybody doing? you just, as soon as you see an eye, you just start trying to find where the mouth is. Like, you just start to piece together a face. And every time I land on one that, like, okay, that looks like it could be the mouth, I'm like, I don't like it. I want it to be more alien than that. I want you to look at it and not know where the pieces are. Like, at it. It should be unnerving. This is so funny. I think people look at some of the books I'm doing and it's like, oh, it's just, people think it's just a bunch of puns. I'm like, no, it's got to be better than that. There's a friend of mine wanted to work on a project together, and the idea was it was going to be kind of a parody, but my friend wanted to be all the kind of, you know, a lot of nudge, nudge, wink, wink, a lot of like, you know, a lot of waiting, holding for applause, and I'm like, no, it can't be the obvious joke, because if it's the obvious joke, everyone's done it, everyone's gonna see it coming. It's not. There's nothing to it. It's much better for it to be the sort of thing where you see it, you don't get the joke, or you think it's something else, and then it surprises you. It's that double take. That's better. And I think that helps with the game stuff, because it's, you know, people sort of expect certain elements. They expect the scary monster. They expect, there's all these expectations, and I like that you can look at the thing and it meets those expectations. It satisfies those expectations, and then there's a whole other thing to it. I still don't like this shape that looks kind of like a nose, right? I mean, it's really easy for that to be a nose. I'm trying not to have that. All right, let's save and see if we can low poly this thing and if it looks good. It's like I'm trying to create a bulletproof shape that will actually, when it's reduced to 20 polygons, a resolution of 20, or would actually hold its shape. I feel like maybe I need to do a simpler, shorter shape and then stretch those pieces out. Like, it doesn't feel crystalline because the polygons are all so similar in size. So let's try that. Yes. Undo. Take the shape. Scale it. So let me mirror these right to left so I have two eyes. Turn off that one. This thing I'm going to scale horizontally. 0.5. Then we will remesh. Then we'll scale it back up to 1. So we'll do that again. I just want to see, I want to have something to compare it to. Clone, slide it over. That's our original. And if we just remesh that, we get that. Now if we scale this guy down to 0.5, and then we remesh that down, and then scale it back up, yeah, all the polygons now are stretched. So it evenly spaced them out. So we can go further than that. Okay. Good. So we scale this down 20%, 0.2. And we remesh. Then we scale it back up to 1. And now they're much more... This one is all squares and triangles, and this is all rectangles and sharper lines. Okay, I can work with that. We use the drag tool, symmetry's on. Yeah, I think that works out well. Now I think I should be able to still work with this. Remesh it up higher. Keeping sharp edges. And I can still, I guess I get to keep doing this. I can... So I can scale it back to the 0.2 again. Remesh and then scale it back forward. See what that does for us. Yeah, it definitely feels more crystalline. I don't like some of the broken geometry. Clearly some of the stuff is like just confused. Like there's no way for the printer to print that. Okay, let's say we remesh it at a much higher resolution, keeping sharp edges. What does it show us? Because it's going to have to fix the broken geometry, right? Even if we have to separate it and keep only the parts we like, chucking all the broken parts, you can see them floating there. Alright folks, I think we're going to call it there. We had a really good stream. I really appreciate it. All the help, encouragement. David, good to see you. Cave, Shane. Oof, I'm telling you, I am white. I had a surprise dental appointment yesterday, and it messed up my whole day. And I've been kind of playing catch up and been exhausted since. But I hope you all have a lovely holiday. I hope your new year ends on a really high note. Cave, good to see you. Eric, good to see you. Who else did I see? Who else was hanging out here? I mentioned Cave, Shane, Eric, Moose. NPC made a cameo, and Telemont, good to see you too. Everyone, I hope you have a lovely holiday. I'm gonna keep working on this Hydrahedron. You know, I don't know if the faceted idea doesn't hold up. Like if I really need to reduce the polygon count a lot. I'm gonna think about it some more. I want to make it work. I really want to make it work. The other thing I can do is, let's take a look at this other sculpt for a moment here. The one we had here. Like, if I take a creature like that, let's turn off the wires for a moment. And I do the same stretching and squishing we had with the polygons before, but also combine with that a blending quality. Let's try this. We'll do just what we did before. Tell you what, just as a safety precaution, I'm going to clone. Select the whole thing. Clone the whole thing. I'm going to adjust. Whatever that measurement is, we'll change it to 0.2. And we'll adjust the poly count. Keeping sharp edges. No, not remesh. Oh yeah, remesh. Then we will scale this back up to 1. I think you can see through it. I think changing it in a way, the lighting. Please be sure. I gotta think about this some more. All right, everybody, have a lovely night. I really appreciate you all. Let me get out of this weird matte cap so I can actually see what I'm doing. And let's get this thing opaque again. I feel like it's that trick of squishing it, remeshing it, and then stretching it again. It does wonders for creating that kind of the horizontal flow of the piece, and it's not just this kind of even chicken wire thing. But much more to do. Again, you can follow me online, Steve Conley, at Twitter. I think I'm Twitter, the Steve Conley, or X. Twitter, the Steve Conley. I'm America's favorite Steve Conley over on the Facebook. I'm Steve Conley on Instagram. And check out Prayer's Handbook. It is going to run until January 4th. And it looks like this book of ours, the Prayer's Handbook, as a dice box and as a case to store the minis I've made. This is going to work out perfectly. I'm really happy with this. I'm going to do some more test prints as we end here. Have a great end of your new year. Happy holidays. And I will see you all back here in 2024.